Hi, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. I'm gonna do a review, which is something I haven't done in a long while. I think the last review we did was pretty much Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, here we go. This is Ozark Seasons 1 to 3, and I'm gonna be talking spoilers here. It might seem like it's gonna come off as sort of a rambling or something like that. I've written down some stuff, but otherwise it's just gonna, it's just off the top of my head, pretty much. But I've written down, some characters and just some random or general thoughts, I should rather say, about the series and what I thought about it. But I could start with saying that usually on this channel, we do a lot of reaction stuff, but we don't have time to do everything. And this is a series that I really wanted to watch, since I just heard a lot of good stuff about it. And many people have been comparing it to one of my favorite shows of all time, Breaking Bad. I know it's not exactly the same, just because it's about a family and crime and stuff like that, but it's sort of in the same wheelhouse. And one thing that is similar with those two series, I would say, is the fact that the first episode is amazing, and it really, really hooks you, and it really draws you in and tells you pretty much what the whole thing is going to be about, what the series is going to be about. It introduces you to the characters, and then it just takes off from there. You are constantly on your toes, just like most of the people or the characters in the series itself, and you never really know what's going to happen. Even if you have some idea or some sense of what's going on, what's going to happen, then the outcome, it might surprise you either way. It's really, there's a lot of twists and turns in this series. But I'm gonna dive a little bit into some of the characters here. We got, the Byrde family. They are, I would say, the lead characters, especially Marty and Wendy Byrde. Marty is a math genius and very calm under pressure. And Wendy, although at first it's kind of hard to figure her out, I would say, and the whole cheating on her husband thing, it weighs heavily on her mind and Marty's mind at the beginning of the series. But as it progresses, she really, really, really starts to take over. And she's just as focused as Marty, even more so a lot of the time, to, make this whole thing work, and this money laundering business that they are trying to get to work down in the Ozarks. And then their children, Jonah and Charlotte. Very, very, very interesting people as well. We learned a lot about them, of course, and they are kids, they are children, so they will behave and act like children. And seeing everything through their eyes a lot of the time is a big part of the series, just when it comes to the family and what they're doing and how they're living and how freaking absurd everything is. And one scene in particular I can think of here is when Wendy and Marty is coming home at some point, and Charlotte is just sitting there at the table just smoking a doobie, and then they're giving her shit for it, and she's just like, what are you even talking about? We're criminals. Like, you're laundering money and we're having people killed and all this horrible shit. I'm just sitting here and smoking a doobie. It's just like, it's so absurd that you would get mad at me. And there are a lot of stuff like that in this. And another character who's there for the first season and a big chunk of the second season, that is Buddy, the guy who's living at the house where they move into, the house they move into in the Ozarks. And he tells them straight away that you can live here like pretty cheap, just under one condition. I get to live here too for the remainder of my days, which is what I think he said, like 12 to 18 months or something. And at first he's just a weirdo and he's bathing naked and everything, but they get to know him more and more, and he essentially becomes a part of the family. And when he goes after him and Wendy, they burn that poppy field at the Snell farm. That was a tough scene to watch. Like, even though this is one of the examples where what's probably going to happen, but the end result, or just the way that you're going to feel about it, it may surprise you at the end. And then staying with inside the house, in the Byrde household, so to say, We also meet Ben, Wendy's brother, in season 3. And since season 3 is obviously the last season I saw, he is actually the character that is, most clear in my mind, or his journey at least in that season. And I think he was played wonderfully by Tom Pelphrey, and he really deserves all the awards for his performance in that series and the way he was able to, he's bipolar and has a lot of mental issues and anger issues and back and forth, and just the way he played that, I thought it was beautifully done. And the episode, I think it was episode 9 of season 3, where Wendy is driving around and trying to figure out, what am I going to do with you? Like, you will not understand what I'm telling you. Where can I put you? Where can I drive you where you will be safe and where you won't do any harm to others or yourself, especially yourself, because he's just not getting it. And we know the outcome. And when they had that talk in the cafe, and she left and just drove away and broke down in the car. And it was very, very well done and very emotional television. And speaking of emotional subject matter, there's a lot of that as well when it comes to another family in this series who are very prevalent and pretty much main characters, I would say, many of them as well, is the Langmore family, with Ruth and Wyatt, Russ, Boyd, 3, and Kate. And some of them are in this series for longer than others, definitely. And at first they might seem like your typical hillbilly or / redneck. I know in the series those two terms are, don't ever say redneck, at least in front of Darlene, that's for sure. But they come off as typical hillbillies or rednecks. But when you really get to know them, of course, there's so much more than that. We only got to know Ross and Boyd for that one season, even though Ross, he had a couple of guest appearances in the second season through Wyatt's memory and him thinking of him. Those were some very beautiful scenes, by the way, and with the singing and everything. And then Kate, he was in prison for most of season 1, or the entirety of season 1, and then we saw him in season 2, and he got shot. He died as well. Ruth ended up killing both Ross and Boyd by electrifying them, on the dock there. And then 3, he's more in the background. He's the little brother. But Wyatt is such an interesting character as well, and he's spending a lot of time with Charlotte at first. And then his journey, or his character, it takes a turn at a point. And then he goes to Darlene, or, she asks if he would want to work on the farm. And then those two form sort of a relationship, which is interesting to watch as well. And now that I mentioned Darlene, then let's get into Jacob Snell and Darlene Snell, two very interesting characters as well. And I did not expect for Darlene to outlive Jacob in this series, because she was the wild card from the first moment we met her, and she killed that guy from the stripper club. And she capped off season 1 with capping Dell in the head with a freaking shotgun after he offended her by using the term redneck in her own home. And then she capped off season 2 by killing Jacob. She did not agree with the way he was doing things, and she definitely thinks that the Byrde family, they are a disease in this town, and they have infected the mind of Jacob, and at the end he wasn't himself, and that's what she tells Wyatt as well. And then just as you think, okay, she's just gonna lose it completely now and start killing off everybody, there's no one to hold her in check anymore. Then in season 3, it actually seems like she takes a step back, and you start to sort of root for her in a way, and especially with the addition of Wyatt in coming to her house and living there, and hooking up with her and everything. And as I mentioned, that is an interesting relationship to follow, and it is something that we're going to keep following in the next season. And then rounding off the characters that I've written down here, I got Rachel, another interesting character, the owner of the Blue Cat Lodge. And I thought that she made her exit at the end of season 1, I believe, or was it at the start of season 2? It's a bit blurry for me. I watched all 3 seasons pretty quick. But after she stole the money, Petty found her and used her a lot. And he was, yeah, let's talk about Petty a little bit. An interesting FBI agent who was took it very personal, it seems like. And he got into a relationship with Russ, but then he gave him up and still did his job. And his death, what the hell, it came out of nowhere. with Kate just walking up to him and them having a conversation at first, and then it didn't go the way that Kate wanted it to, and he snapped and just fucking killed him. That was definitely one of the biggest surprises in the series, for me at least. But after Petty died, then Maya, she took over instead as sort of the not the handler for Marty Byrde, but she was there, and he was trying to turn her, but she is hell-bent on doing the right thing, on the morally right thing, even though she won't bring the stuff that Marty keeps bringing to her bosses, but she has to, otherwise they will give her a scolding. And yeah, that's an interesting dynamic, and it's intriguing to see where that goes in the future, at least. And then lastly but not least, we have the cartel characters, I would call them. We get to know Del at first, and he is the guy who's in charge of Marty, but then he gets killed by Darlene, as I mentioned earlier. We then start to get to know Helen Pierce, who's like the lawyer for the Navarro cartel, and then we obviously also get to know Navarro and how his mood swings are very up and down, and you definitely want to be on his good side if you are working for him. And the whole partnership / rivalry between Marty and Wendy Byrde and Helen Pierce, and them trying to make themselves, invaluable to Omar Navarro. But he certainly made a decision towards the end of season 3, and I think that is the last thing I'm going to talk about in this review. It is the ending of season 3. I also want to touch quickly on the endings of seasons 1 and 2. Season 1 ending with Wendy making a choice to not go anywhere with the children, and then go back and stay in this with Marty, and she is committing. And then they have another chance to get away and go to the Gold Coast, I think, at the end of season 2. And she, once again, makes a decision to, no, we're going to stay in this. We're not going anywhere. This is what we're doing. And then through season 3, she gets Marty on board 100%. Or should I say, Navarro almost does that by, kidnapping him and making Marty go through this whole thing where he's learning a lot about himself and what he can endure as a person. So when we get to the end of season 3, they want to go into this and they want to be 100% about it. And Navarro definitely makes a choice for him and for them and everybody else, and definitely for Helen when he decides to Helen in the head. And then he's hugging Marty and Wendy, and we get a song from Run the Jewels playing over the credits, and it was almost not a very characteristic way of ending an episode or a season overall in Ozark, but it was almost like they had so much confidence, and I loved it. It was a very confident ending, and now I simply cannot wait for season 4. Season 4 A and B, or I know they are dividing the season up into 2 parts, just like Breaking Bad did. But let's be real, it's gonna feel like it's seasons 4 and 5, because there's going to be a year in between, and I think it has something to do with if your actors sign on to do one season and then you say it's season 4A and season 4B, and then we can have a mid-season finale and we can spread it out. It is almost like it is 2 seasons, but because they have only agreed to 1 season, they're only paying them for 1 season. So it's cheaper to do it this way for a lot of studios. But for us, it's basically the same. We're essentially going to get 2 more seasons of this show. But I think I'm just gonna end this review here. I could keep on talking about this series. I think that it is really, really, really great. Just awesome cinematography and music, and the acting is on point as well. I've only been talking about some of the stuff that's been going on, and Even though I mentioned a lot of the main characters, there are still more characters to get into. But once the series is complete, then I will most definitely get to talk about it again. And what about you guys? Have you seen it? I certainly hope so if you watched this spoiler-filled review. And if you have, please feel free to talk about it down in the comments. I will make sure to go down there and look through them and interact with you guys and everything. I'm not going to grade the series. I'm just going to tell you that it is really, really awesome. And I definitely enjoyed these first 3 seasons. Cannot wait for more. And with that, there's not much else to say, but thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.